In yellow belt, the first of the forms that you'll learn is Heian Shodan. This is the introduction to the Okinawan forms here. So every other level, you'll be looking at either the Okinawan form or one of the Kung Fu forms. We'll introduce the Kung Fu form, the first of those 5 forms, with orange belt. So the introduction to the Heian form starts here in yellow, and it's Heian Shodan. Heian stands for peaceful mind, and Shodan is like the first of the peaceful mind forms, or peaceful mind form number 1. And this is also utilized in the Shotokan schools, in the Gojo-ryu schools. Most of the schools that come from the Funakochi line, Okinawan traditional karate schools, will use the Heian forms at some point in their curriculum. It is part of that body of knowledge there. So when Kenpo was starting, rather than begin with designing its own forms, it borrowed those. They were already established, they were already known to be good, effective teaching tools, good, just solid forms. And I think it's a shame that at some point Kenpo stopped teaching them in favor of just making up its own, because there's still good stuff there. So historically speaking, as a study, as well as just what we may have lost in the process of kicking them out of the system, one of my priorities with Kenpo Karate for Christ is to bring them back. So Heian Shodan, this first form, most of this form will be advancing, and it will be in forward bow. That'll change. The last 4 steps will be in neutral bow, but almost the entire form is advancing, and you're in the forward bow position. So from the top, what I'm going to do is it's like I'm grabbing my belt and I'm pulling it tight. All the Heian forms start with this as their attention position, whereas most of our Kenpo forms begin with this scholar and warrior position. Even the Kung Fu forms start with this like cat stance, and again the scholar and warrior position. The traditional Okinawan karate forms start the hands out in front like this at attention, as if you're grabbing the belt and pulling it tight. Now step 1 from here, I'm going to turn here to my left, and I'm doing a downward block directly to the left. It's like someone do a front kick, and you're blocking that kick away. In step 2, I'm going to advance with a step through and a punch center of the body. That's my counter attack. Now I'm going to do the same thing. These Heian forms have a lot of mirror imaging. As I turn, same hand, same foot. Right side's going to turn to the opposite wall here now, towards my right side, a downward block. This time I've blocked the kick, and they grab my wrist. It's a direct wrist grab. And it's going to introduce a wrist escape. And to do that, I want to both pull my arm away, as well as twist at my wrist. I pull and twist as if I'm turning my hand thumb side down while I'm trying to touch my opposite shoulder here. And what that does is within the wrist grab here, that weak spot between the thumb and the index finger, as you're grabbing hold of the wrist, you're turning the forward bone here at the thumb side of your wrist. You're kind of rolling that bone right between that weak spot, turning it, rolling it out of that weak spot, and at the same time, it's a pull and a turn. Body can fight. If you just pull, they can fight. You're going to get into a arm wrestling match there. If you just try and twist, they can feel that and they can fight that too. But the brain can't really deal with 2 directions at once. Both the pull and a corkscrew of the arm, twisting at the same time, will get you out of that wrist grab. So step 3 is the downward block. Say they did a front kick, and then they directly grab your wrist. It's be a left hand direct wrist grab. Now pull that out. Hammer fist comes down onto their collarbone. And then step 4, I advance with a left step through punch as my counterattack. Now 5, I'm going to turn towards the front now, towards 12 o'clock, a downward block here with the same hand, same foot, and immediately high block. And then I'm going to open my hand to a sword hand, which is going to simulate as I make my next step, I close that hand like I'm grabbing. So you've done a high block and you're reaching to grab. I'm going to advance and high block with the right, open my hand to a sword hand. That's step 6. 7, I high block, open my hand to a sword hand. And then step 8 is the high block. And at step 8, an explosion of sound happens. This is where we start to train the karate shout, or the kiai. And the way that works is it's got to be low. It's got to be from like the diaphragm. You want to think of it almost generating from your knees or your toes up. So it's not a high, squealy scream where you'll tear your vocal cords. And also that wouldn't be very intimidating. Part of the function of the karate shout is to create a big sound, much bigger than you actually are. You want to all of a sudden sound, using your voice as a weapon, sound larger than you actually are, right? So in terms of doing that, we want, it can't be high. It can't be high and squealy. That won't intimidate anybody. It's got to be the low growl of like the lion here, or the pit bull, right? The one explosion of sound that will send them running here. It's like in biblical accounts when they would hear, happen several times within the Bible. One of them in 2 Kings when there's 4 lepers and they're going to die because they're trapped outside the city walls, and the invading army has a blockade set up so no one can get in or out, and the people are just starving in the city. So the lepers decide, well, we'll go to the enemy camp, and maybe they kill us, but we're going to die here anyway. They might have mercy on us. So our only chance to live is if we go there. If we stay here, we're definitely going to die. So they go to the enemy camp, and on their way there, some confusion in the enemy camp, they actually hear the army of God. And it's such a frightening sound. It's this huge sound. They drop everything and they leave. All their supplies, all their food. The entire camp is, everyone's gone. And when these lepers walk in, there's food there. The city is spared. And they bring the message of the salvation of the city, that the enemy camp is empty, that the enemy army is left due to the sound of God's army. They get to deliver that message as 4 lepers returning to their home city, letting them know the salvation has arrived in the form of just the sound of God's army. So you can do a lot with a sound, right? Making a bigger sound with your voice than you actually are here. And most of the time, when it's with little kids in particular, I'll tell them, a bully wants to pick on somebody that won't fight back. And if you can just kind of stand back into your fighting stance, put up a good fighting stance, first thing they learn, first class, how to do a fighting stance, don't have to throw a kick or a single punch. And they let their war cry go, just a loud, "Hey!" and look mean, and look tough, look stronger than they are. Even if in their mind they're afraid, they're thinking, this kid's going to beat me up, send me home screaming to mama. If their body language says, I ain't afraid of you, you made my day, I'm about to kick your butt, something fierce. If that's what they're giving off, the bully will always pick an easy target, always go for an easy prey. So that's also what's being trained here at step 8 with that key out. So again, just up to step 8, I'll do the shout and then take it from there, from the top here. Step 1, left downward block. Step 2, right step through punch. 3, I'm turning, right downward block, they grab your wrist, we pull out, hammer fist, and 4, left step through punch. 5, I'm in a downward block, high block, sword hand, and I'm simulating a grab as I step forward and high block with the other side, sword hand. That's 6, 7, high block, sword hand, and 8, ace! 9, I'm going to rear cross, left foot steps behind the right. As I turn, again, I'm facing to the right side from where I started, and downward block here. The second half of the form is fairly easy. Downward block, fairly basic. I step forward and counterattack, step 10 with a right step through punch. 11, again, that balance of the form. I'm going to go the other way. Downward block with the right. I step through, punch with the left, counterattack. And then 13, that's 11 and 12. 13, I'm in a downward block. Now I'm going back to where I started here, back to the first part of the form. And I know my back's facing in, but it's a left downward block. And I'm advancing with a step through right punch. There, that's 14. Step through left punch. 15. And then 16, again, the shout happens. Step through ace! Right there. So from steps 9 to 16, it's basically downward block punch, downward block punch, downward block punch, punch, punch. And again, shout there. Real basic, real simple. On the step through punches, as you're coming back there, step, if this is 13, you need to be 14, 15, 16. Note the foot coming in and out, doing what they call that crescent moon step here, rather than just stepping forward. It's like you're coming around an obstruction. Around an obstruction. That's important too. Just kind of getting used to that footwork. It's introduced there. So if I go back to 16, right step through punch here. Step 17, Like step 9, I'm going to rear cross again with that left foot. And as I unwind, now I'm going to be in neutral bow for the last 4 steps. So I'm turning here, step 17. I'm doing an extended outward block with my left hand, using the sword hand this time. Extended outward block, my right hand is going to chamber, but since it's sword hand, rather than being back here by my ribs, it'll be right here, center of my body. Here, palm up. That way it can turn palm down as it counter strikes on the next move. I'm on the inside of the arm as I do an inward block. I'm going to advance and hit the side of the neck. And when I advance to the corner. I don't advance straight to the left, kind of stepping off on the diagonal, what would be toward our 10-30 line. And I extended outward block, or outward chop with the right hand to the side of the neck. And then when I turn on the right hand again, I'm back flush again, straight towards the wall. Right hand does the extended outward block. They're blocking the inside of the punch here. If they did a left punch, blocking there. And then I advance, stepping towards 130, left extended outward sword hand block. That's step 20, right? So one more time, the whole thing, Heian Shodan is 1, 2, 3, hammer fist, 4, 5 goes down, up, sword hand 6, up, sword hand 7, up, sword hand 8. 9 turns, downward block 10, step through punch, 11, downward block 12, punch 13, downward block 14, right punch 15 left, and then 16. Right again. I turn, left sword hand block 17, 18, right sword hand strike 19, right sword hand block, and 20, left sword hand to the side of the neck, come back to close. And that is Heian Shodan, Peaceful Mind number 1.